The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
As Jesus was walking on, he saw a man named Matthew sitting by the customs house, and he said to him, "Follow me." And he got up and followed him. While he was at dinner in the house, it happens that a number of tax collectors and sinners came to sit at the table with Jesus and his disciples. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to his disciples, "Why does your master eat with tax collectors and sinners?" When he heard this, he replied, "It is not the healthy who need the doctor, but the sick. Go and learn the meaning of the words. What I want is mercy, not sacrifice. And indeed, I did not come to call the virtuous, but sinners." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
So today, just as I said in the beginning, we're celebrating the feast of Saint Matthew, one of the apostles and also an evangelist. And today we read from his Gospel, and he is reporting his own story. You can imagine what is going through his mind. As a holy person, somebody who has followed Jesus, he has written about him. I mean, among all the disciples, you would think that Matthew would be one of the learned ones because he was a tax collector chosen by the Romans to keep an account of everything that was happening, especially regarding the taxes. And he is reporting a story about his own call, how his life was before the time he met Jesus. And you can imagine the kind of difficulties Matthew went through being chosen as one of the apostles. I mean, forget about the fact that he was martyred. I mean, the difficulties he encountered amongst his fellow apostles. Uh, we know that many of the apostles were fishermen. So that means they had direct contact with Matthew, and that Matthew was one of their toughest enemy. Because whenever they fished and they brought the fish ashore, Matthew would be the first to come and tax the fish, and they had to pay painfully to him. Now, just remember that the Jewish people, they had gone through a lot. First thing, they were enslaved in Egypt. They went through the desert for 40 years suffering and going through a lot of difficulties. And then even when they settled in the promised land and they were disobedient, they were taken into exile. And they spent many years in exile, and then they came out of exile. And then they went from one tribe to many other nations came and took over them, and they were maltreating them, the last of them being the Romans. And you can imagine the frustration that they had towards the Romans. And they thought the Savior who was coming to save them would save them from the hands of the Romans. And now, amongst the Jews, there were some who, instead of joining the rest of the people, especially the learned ones, who, instead of joining the rest of the Jews in fighting against the Romans, were taken by the Romans to become tax collectors. So tax collectors were not Romans, they were Jewish people. And so the people saw them as traitors, as betrayers, and that is why they hated them. They said they are sinners because they have gone to join the Romans. So they are no longer clean. They were unclean, first of all, and they were sinners because they were betrayers of the covenant's people. And then Matthew happens to be one of them. And then Jesus comes along and he calls this person who is considered as a betrayer, who is considered as a sinner, as unclean, as a traitor. You can imagine the difficulties he had to encounter amongst his disciples. Now, one of them is James the Zealot. Zealots were people who were actually training physically, doing all kinds of karate or judo or whatever thing, or wrestling, or trying to train privately in order to fight the Romans and the tax collectors physically. Now you can imagine James the Zealot coming face to face with his enemy, who is Matthew, and has to accept him as a brother. And why did Jesus do this? Why did Jesus choose Matthew, knowing that he would go through all that he went through amongst the disciples? He was never accepted. It took a lot of time for them to accept Matthew as a brother, because from time immemorial they have always seen Matthew as a traitor, as somebody who betrayed them. And Jesus he decided to choose Matthew as one of the apostles, knowing that he's a sinner, knowing that he's not going to have an enemy, he's not going to have an easy time. And there in the gospel, we find the Pharisees already complaining and saying, "How comes your master eats with tax collectors and sinners?" And Jesus says, it is only the sick who needs a doctor. I came not for the righteous, I came to turn the table around. I came for sinners, not for the righteous. And it makes all the difference. And St. Paul says in his letter to the Romans, chapter 2, verse 11, God has no favorites. God has no favorites. He has come to heal us. He has come to set us free. He has come to change everything again over and over. And I mean, if Jesus himself could choose Matthew, knowing who he was, knowing that he's a tax collector, he's a sinner, he's hated, he has betrayed his own people. What do you think about your own brokenness, about your own sinfulness? That is exactly what he has come for. He has come to redeem us. He has come to heal us. He died on the cross particularly for you as an individual, because he wants to set you free, because he has come for sinners, because he knows you are sick and he's the doctor who can heal that sickness. And that is what exactly he has come for, that we may be healed, that we may be restored. Those who are depressed, that they may find hope again in him. Those who are in despair, that they may find hope in him. Those who are sick, that they may receive their healing. That all those who are going through difficult times, that they may receive hope and restoration for everything that they have lost. And that is what Jesus came to do, to bring again all those tax collectors who gathered in the house of Matthew, all the sinners who gathered in his house, that they may see the light again. God did not come to make the dark to stay in darkness. He wanted to bring the light to those in dark, that they may be able to see. And that is what he's doing for each and every one of us. So as we continue to celebrate the feast day of St. Matthew, let us also remember our brokenness, our sinfulness. And we trust in God that he's always there to heal us. He's always there to restore us to himself. He's always there to bring light in our darkest moments of our lives.